Hey, hello again. I'm down at Thea's Park on the waterfront in Tacoma near Ruston Way. I came down to paint a tall ship. That's the Lady Washington floating out there. Looks like she's giving a little tour. She was at the dock a couple days ago. I saw her, did a quick gouache painting. I wanted to bring my oil paints down and video a little larger painting of her. Beautiful old wooden ship, tall masted ship. She, I think, is normally parked here or out in Gig Harbor or Aberdeen, Washington. I'm not quite sure where her home port is. Beautiful ship. But it pulled away from the dock and is sailing around. That would be, I think, a little too challenging to try to capture in an oil painting. Maybe I could probably sketch it. I could probably do a pencil sketch or two of it floating out there. Taking lots of pictures, may get some ideas for studio painting, especially when the light hits it. It's beautiful, the light on those sails. What I'm thinking is a little more industrial modern scene. I'm thinking of this big red and white tanker pulled up to the shore here. I think those are grain silos. They're right along the train tracks. So I thought I would capture a little 9x12 of that. It's an interesting composition with the sunlit clouds behind it, those foothills, the gray-green water, the red of the ship, the white of the ship, and all of that industrial structure of those silos and the gantry and the awning overhead. So lots of kind of cool geometric shapes, colors to capture in an oil painting. So I think I'll walk around a little bit and try to find a good view of that. I may not want to be like straight on the back of it as I am here, maybe a little more off to the side. I love these days where we get broken clouds, where you get a little bit of blue sky, a little bit of cloud cover, so you get these interesting light and shadow patterns playing on the water, playing on the buildings. Can be a little challenging to paint, but sure is beautiful. It smells like the waterfront down here too. It smells salty. A little bit of an industrial smell as well from the train tracks nearby. The neat thing about this Thea's Park is that you can take off on a walk along the waterfront here, along Commencement Bay, and walk a good distance along a marina and the Foss Waterway. Some restaurants along here. Pretty little area, interesting area. I've got a new little wet paint container. Got it off Amazon. The other one I like, but I kept breaking the clips, so I thought I would try this one. It's pretty inexpensive. It's all plastic, so it may break as well pretty quickly. We'll have to see. It's got a gasket here, so it should keep the paints pretty wet. It's got 16 wells, so what I like to do is at the end of the session I can put the clean, pure paint back in these wells and it'll stay wet here. I find this easier to travel with than all these different tubes, even the small tubes. Now I do keep an extra tube of white, an extra tube of alizarin crimson, ultramarine, and I keep burnt umber and burnt sienna, just because even in here the burnt sienna and the burnt umber seem to skin over pretty quickly, so I carry those tubes on top of this. But what I do like is that if I have leftover paint and I'm not going to be back home where I can scrape it off and put it in the freezer easily, I can scrape it off and put it in here and it'll stay pretty wet. Got my typical colors out here: ivory black, Rembrandt cold gray, titanium white, cerulean blue, ultramarine blue, sap green. It's got a little bit of cerulean blue spilled on top of it accidentally. It's raining a little bit, which shouldn't hurt anything as long as it's not a heavy rain. Burnt umber, burnt sienna, alizarin crimson, cad red, cad yellow, Windsor lemon, Gamblin radiant lemon, and yellow ochre. This should be more than enough colors. I may not use all of them. Got some artist turpentine here to start with my Turpentine Wash. Got Neo McGilp in here, which is a Gamblin medium. It's not as quick dry as liquid, so I like to use it when it's warmer out. The paints don't tack up quite as fast as with liquid. And then I've got a little bit of Gamsol. Once I'm done with the Turpentine Wash, I'll get a bigger can of Gamsol out, but I'll mainly use the Gamsol that's in this little cup. So for the scene today, I'm thinking something like this on my 9x12 linen panel. I want to put the tanker over on this vertical 1/3 line, put the base of the tanker on the lower 1/3 line, and the horizon line just above that. I'll put the edge of these silos on this vertical 1/3 line, and the very top of this mast on this upper 1/3 line. So the kind of action, the center of interest is right around here, these intersections of the 1/3 lines, and there's also some nice colors and action points over here. There's a nice edge of the rocky beach leading into the scene, and there are some patterns in the water that I can use to lead the line in, as well as the reflections. I'll go with a very rough sketch at first, just to get the big shapes in, then I'll do the Turpentine Wash. A small older bristle brush and some turpentine here for the sketch. I'll just use a little bit of burnt sienna for the sketch. I want to take my time with the sketch, since this painting is a drawing exercise. If the drawing is off, the perspective will be off. I'm going to go for a point where the sun is hitting pretty directly on the back of the ship and on the white superstructure, I think is what they call that. And then throw different parts maybe of the foreground into some shadow. It's really beautiful when you get a little shadow in the foreground or in the distant background and light on the center of interest. So I'm going to keep my eye on the scene and try to capture that moment. So I'll mix my colors as I go. I'm trying to do more detailed drawing subjects to challenge myself. Drawing with paint, plein air. It is a challenge. It's a lot of fun. I love to draw. I'm constantly practicing. But it is difficult to draw with a paintbrush, with the weather and the wind and the changing elements. But it really feels great when you pull it off. I don't want the top of these little foothills to be directly in line with this line of the superstructure, so I'm dipping them down a little bit more than they are here in reality. I'm also going to drop this little dock, this little catwalk. Not quite that far, maybe. I don't want it to be right in line with the horizon, so I'm going to put it just below the horizon. I don't want there to be a tangent point. And then here's the edge of the silos. So I'm using the image on my phone, which has the 1/3 lines added as a viewfinder, just to help me place the big shapes. Once I get the big shapes in, I can put my iPhone away, unless I want to refer to it for a certain light effect. It's helpful then. If the light changes completely and I'm trying to finish the painting, looking at the photo on my phone can help. I've been asked a few times on social media and by email, how do I deal with painting outdoors in the different light conditions, and especially when you paint outside and you're painting in real bright sunlight, or you're painting in real deep shade, it can really throw the values off in your painting. So it may look great when you're outside, or it may look almost correct when you're painting outside, and then you get it home and it's too high value or too dark. That's a real challenge, and it takes a lot of practice. One piece of advice I can give you is try to paint in light shade. That's about the best conditions. That's about the best condition if you're painting on a sunny day and you're under an umbrella or under an awning where you have just a little bit of light shade. That can make it quite a bit easier to handle. Next up, I would say paint in deep shade with a lamp on your panel and on your palette. I've shown in some other videos the lamp I use when I'm painting in deep shade. To me, that's next best after light shade. And then third best would be really bright sun, or equally challenging would be changing from bright sun to shade. Like on a day like this where clouds are going overhead, it can become, like right now there's a lot of sun on the panel, so it's a little bit blinding. And then I'll be under a cloud and it'll seem really dim. That can be frustrating and challenging. I wear contacts, so you can play with your eyesight too to deal with that bright sunlight all of a sudden. I bring amber sunglasses to put on if I'm painting on really bright days. I'll probably put those on after I'm done with this sketch. Alright, that's pretty much it for the sketch. Now I will go to the Turpentine Wash. I'm going to go ahead and use this small bristle brush to paint in some of these smaller objects with the wash, and then I'll switch to a bigger bristle brush. You may wonder why I'm using cad yellow for that red ship. Red and white. And the answer is I see some yellow rusty spots throughout the ship, in the white and in the red. So I think having that peek through a little bit as an underlayer will be interesting. I can paint over the top of this with a deeper red and a brighter white, and let some of that underpainting peek through, and I think it'll be a nice effect. I'll go with burnt sienna for the sky because I'm seeing some warmth in those clouds, and I think it'll look nice as I paint in the blue, the hazy blue, cerulean blue sky into those clouds. I'll go with yellow ochre for the silos and for the bay water, burnt sienna for the beach, cad yellow for the tanker, and alizarin crimson for those distant hills. Here I'm doing something I don't normally do. I'm adding some vibrant, thicker color right into the wash. I want it to bleed a little bit, and I want to define the back of that ship just a little bit while the paint is still wet and moving around some. So these are the same wash colors, but I'm adding a little bit of cad red in there, cad red light, just to bump up the red on the back on that boat. I'm also going to throw some ultramarine into the shadows, reinforce those now, just to play, just to see what happens. Alright, there's the very sloppy, quick turpentine wash in. I'm going to take a little sharper evergreen and just carve in a few of the lightest lights. Here are the colors I mixed up. Now, believe it or not, I tried to minimize the number of different colors so that I could move faster. It didn't take me too long, maybe 20 minutes to mix up these colors. In some cases, I came across a color as I was going from, say, this lighter sky color to the darker sky color. As I was going from this one to this one, I came across this nice clean blue, which I thought would be a nice highlight to counterpose this more yellow blue. So I went ahead and saved it. I've got these colors for the silo structure and also for the blue stack on the ship. More yellow, more gray, more cooler, more blue-gray. Got some colors for the trees and the bushes, shadow color and sunny color. Got colors for the ship, the red of the ship. As it shifts away from me, I'll add a little bit of sky blue to blue it out, make it recede more. And as it comes closer and where the sun is hitting it flat on, it gets more intense and more orange. I've got some colors for the rock on the beach and also for the shadow under the silo structure and under the dock. More blue, more red, more green. Some color for the sand and rock on the near beach. Then I've got some white, a little warmer, more orange, more cad yellow, a little cooler, more straight up white. This is for the superstructure on the ship. And then this is a green I see in the water. A lot of the water is just the reflected sky, but kind of a base color is this light green-gray, and then I can throw in these colors as reflections. Now as I'm painting, if something is not popping or fading like I want it to, I can add straight colors, I can add black, I can add gray, I can add white. I want to minimize the number of pools of color so that I can more easily keep a harmony. If I paint mostly from these pools now, I know I've got the values set into just a few value families. And I can tell that just by squinting. I can tell that squinting at these, all of these colors are one value family. All of these colors are one value. These colors are one value. These two are one value, and this is more of a highlight, highest white, lightest white. Start with this number 7, rosemary evergreen. Start with the furthest back, the sky. I think I'll go ahead and use a little bit of this highlight white and paint in the cloud shapes then the shadows of the clouds, and then the blue of the sky last. Dip into just a little Gamsol first, make sure my brush is clean for these clean white clouds, and also help the paint slide onto the panel. By now this turpentine wash should be pretty well dry and set up, so I won't be picking up too much of that color. I don't want a real bright highlight this close to the edge of the panel, and I don't want to outdo this highlight. I want this to be the lightest light, so I'm going to go ahead and drop this in. This should be the lightest light on the panel. The sun is now coming from this direction, so I'm going to keep that in mind as I'm painting these clouds. This will also be bright here. This one as well. As I'm painting the sky, I can straighten up these edges, help reinforce that these are man-made structures by making the edges sharp. Thinking about linear perspective, things should get bigger as they come closer, smaller as they recede. So these clouds can be relatively big. And then these clouds down here should be smaller in comparison, and a little bluer in this area. That white of the clouds in this area should be a little bluer, and then right at the very bottom, the lowest clouds, you're seeing through the most dust, so those will often have a reddish tinge. So I can just barely touch this blue and do the whites of these clouds. And then I can touch just a little bit of red for the clouds on the horizon. And those are very subtle shifts up to there. The wind's picking up a little bit as these clouds roll in, so I'm going to anchor my easel so it doesn't blow over. Here I tried the color I mixed up for those distant hills, and it's just too dark, so I'm lightening it up with some sky color. That's better. maybe a little too intense, and gray it down just a little bit with some of the cloud color. Back to my sky color with a little bit of this yellow gray. Paint that distant water. All right, you can probably see the sun is moved up and over the top of the trees now, so it's waving between shadow and bright sun, which is hard on the eyes. So I'm going to move back just a little bit so I'm more in the shadow, the light shadow of the trees. I haven't moved back far enough that my perspective has changed, but hopefully the shadow will help. Take a smaller evergreen flat. This is a 1. So it's maybe 1/4 of an inch wide. I'll paint the structure of the boat. Start with this yellow, which I like. Mix it into this orangey red. That's too dark, so I'm a little lighter. Yellow. I forgot to paint in this little bit of water here, so I'm going to go ahead and use this same green-gray color from the sky with a clean brush and paint in this little strip of water. Preserving my biggest contrast for this point of interest. Everything else can be really soft. Here's where it ended up. 9 by 12 inch oil on panel. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. I think the center of interest really pops. Those bright colors, the contrast, everything else is kind of soft. I'll take it back to my studio. I can see a little cleanup I need to do. I want to add a little more detail to this structure some of those struts, those highlights. I want to model the silos just a little bit more so they read as cylinders. And then the foreground I'll need to clean up where it's covered by the easel. Train going by. Beautiful little park, pretty area, pretty day. Glad we got a little bit of sunlight today. As always, thanks so much for joining me. If you like these videos, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. It says here that Thea's Park is named for the remarkable woman who started Foss Boathouse in 1889, known for her compassionate presence in the community, reaching out to others with her warmth, her Norwegian cookies, and her always ready coffee. Sounds like a Pacific Northwest gal to me. If you'd like to support the channel, please visit my website. I sell these little plein air pieces at a reasonable price because I consider them practice. It really makes me happy when someone likes my art enough that they want to hang it in their home. You can also sign up for my newsletter and stay up to date on my new work and shows and get a discount on original art and prints.